burning questions? Anybody? Right, we'll open up the Q&A to the floor, so who's first? Who wants to?
I just wanted to say I think Gareth's letting Nicola Sturgeon by saying she's frightened or feared.
I really think it's just that basic emotion.
Do you really? I mean, is it not the case that it could be deliberate and that it's just deceiving the whole Scottish independent supporting public? And it's the enemy within. This is the worry now. Not Westminster necessarily, but our own people who we thought were our own.
I've been accosted in the street 3 times by a guy who recognised who I was and is a unionist. He didn't threaten me. He got pretty close to it, bollocking me. And I did my whole Sicilian mafia number, you know. Just sort of stood there. There was a witness, you know, the guy was cleaning my car. Did you come that guy? I said, yeah. Doesn't he seem to like you? I said, that's the umpteenth time. Excuse me, I have to phone the police so they can record the incident. Why am I telling you that? I think what she's done is unconsciously brought the job down to her abilities.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah.
And secondly, you mustn't forget, and this includes the ferries, she's subjected to colonial employed civil servants' advice. They will tell her, oh, the only way to do this properly, so that the world doesn't get upset, is S30. You'll need Boris's permission for that, First Minister. They'll be, you know, you can take that for granted. And they'll have done the same with the ferries. They'll have advised which ferry should be made where, and you know, the harbour stuff, that whole nonsense, that whole fiasco. So it'll have been a double-pronged thing. And if you're not strong, if you don't know the job, you'll step back. Well, all this advice is saying to me, don't do it, you know. So the reason I told you about the guy was, as a writer, I have to observe human nature, and I thought he's keeping this campaign going. You know, he's now bad-mouthing me to various people. I'm getting odd things spoken back to me. So I checked up on his background, and one of my leads led to a QC, Scottish QC, where he used to live. And sure enough, he had done the same to the QC. He had actually confronted him in the street because the QC had complained about parties selling booze illegally till 2, 3, 4 in the morning, you know. 2 houses away, Georgia and Edinburgh. And this guy was that kind of, you know, I'm going to get retribution. Just kept it up, and the QC was unsure of who it was when I phoned him. I said, I'm just trying to find out what's making this guy tick. I'm having a difficult job avoiding him. I don't speak to him. If I see him, I walk the other way, and if he confronts me in the street, I just stand motionary. I mean, yeah, in your head, you want to give him a double uppercut, you know, while he's talking. Just quick jab, let him know. Because everybody's got some violence in them. I'm no different from that. So I looked up Nicola's background and discovered that she was not well liked as a lawyer. She refused to take advice from her senior colleagues. And one of the most significant things that was said to me was, she would have this thing where she found the one solution to her client's problem, and that's what she stuck with. I thought, well, that's interesting. You know, I'm right, and I will prove I'm right. Right to the bitter end, even if it doesn't work. So it's in the nature of the person. There's a saying, peel away the layers of the onion and you'll get to the real onion. Well, I have to tell you, the layers of the onion are the onion. So Nicola Sturgeon doesn't have the bravura, and as I said earlier, the statecraft. That's missing from her experience. Some of it isn't her fault. It's easier to get in a group and have a selfie taken. You know, look at all these people who like me, and this is good. I'll be able to convince them to vote yes. Throughout her tenure, the polls show that she hasn't actually induced many more people to switch from no or doubt to yes. She hasn't managed it. And also, she has to know about that. She must be aware of it. So there is an element of arrogance, of vanity, of hubris. I can make this work. So, yeah. And I'm not the first person. A lot of what I say and write is because I've been listening to people. And I'm sometimes taken aback. I mean, there are people in the street now saying, "Her, her!" You know, "Her, we're not going to get anywhere with her." And
No
I say,
humiliation.
"Who's her? Who you?"
Spouting independence. We will be independent. We will not allow Brexit to keep us out of Europe. You never hear about her talking about Brexit.
She's a serial failure, and almost everything she touches turns to dust.
Yeah,
If you look back on it, everything.
Humiliated by that, but she just goes on to the next thing.
There are two things. Again, I'm not the first to say this. There are two things I know she did: baby boxes, and 2 of the hospitals got their parking costs wiped out. I can't think of anything else she's actually created. One of the things that I did was to keep a list of everything positive that the SNP had achieved, you know, when they came to power. It says, that essay says SNP achievements, and I split it into categories. I've not actually been able to add anything to that list for 1.5 years, not because of COVID, just because it's all been GRA and hate crimes. I'm guilty of a hate crime. That's really what the discipline committee decided. It's in his head. So, when you are of a low standard, you will surround yourself with other people of a similar standard because you feel comfortable in their company. If one is mediocre, you will employ mediocre people because your standards are lower. It's like somebody saying to Barbara, "Everything is art. Anybody can do art." And she'll say, "Well, what's the standard?" You know, would you have said that to Leonardo da Vinci? Would you have said that to Michelangelo? Would you have said that to Picasso? That funny squint face, you know, with the eyes on the one side. I could do a drawing like that. It's like a Wayne drawing like that. Well, no, it's actually taken 35 years to reach that technique. It's been a journey for him, you know, to get to simplify and simplify and simplify, and then break convention and find a new way of seeing. So my attitude is, I mean, I know that I've got to mention Stu Campbell again because he was, I think, first to call her out. and then, a bit like Dugdale, kept at it too long, you know. You can call somebody a liar for so many times, but you have to change the things. Dissembler, you know, untruths. You can't do it every day, every day, every day. The person on the other end is going to retaliate. But he was the first to say she has to go, and I know because I phoned him up. I said, that's a really tough essay. I said, I agree with you. I said, but I've been using diplomacy. I've been saying she should step aside, you know, she should bring in a committee, she should bring in constitutional lawyers and announce we are withdrawing from the union. Then I started to think, well, she hasn't got her pounds ready yet. She hasn't printed enough money. She hasn't set up a DVLA that the Westminster quietly took back from us. She hasn't set up a new passport office that they took quietly away from us. Oh hell, there's a whole lot of things that she hasn't done yet, you know. That was the attack I took on her. She hadn't done. She, as the leader of the National Party, had made no preparation. That was the way I tackled it. He just went straight for the bullseye between her eyes. And I said, you know, of course he had added the disappearance of £600,000 to her track record, and the obfuscation, you know, and the lies about where it lay and all that. They couldn't even be open with us. He was furious at her for removing women's rights. You know, she's got a litany of half-baked policies that are really easy to calculate what the repercussions will be. So you have to say, well, let's not have that in that clause because that is, you know, we'll never get this through. That's difficult, you know. There's a lot of people that affects, and we don't want to do that. She seems incapable, just the same as happened with Alex Salmond. It would never have crossed her mind that he might be proven innocent, wholly innocent. Didn't even occur to Kirsty Wark, because she prepared a documentary where it was clear to my eyes, as a filmmaker, had been composed on a guilty verdict. And if I go on like this, I'll start sounding like George Galloway. I just need the wee home and half. God help me, I'm morphing into George Galloway.
He's doing well in it, it's going to feel like him.
So,
Do you 400,000 followers?
no, I saw that tweet. So it's that inability to have foresight, you know, not to understand the repercussions of letting a ferry go to Turkey to build. I mean, for God's sake. And then, you know, we've got the example of the Queensferry Bridge, brought in 240 million under budget and under time. We've got the examples we can do. See, this is one of the little secrets of the British Empire. The minute it collapsed, Britain discovered we weren't really very good at building ships. You know, we weren't really very good at economics. We needed India's money to keep us going. Billions of it. We impoverished the entire nation. We let millions die of starvation in India. Churchill was quite happy about that. And when the British Empire collapsed, nobody said, not a penny that we were supposed to make in Scotland went on the rehabilitation of the Highlands, the desecration of the Highlands and the Lowlands. Nothing. We filed people in Glasgow in rat-infested tenements to serve the empire. That's not making money. A few Scots did, and quite a few out of slavery. But they weren't throwing their money around here. So you start looking at things like that, you know, and the whole edifice starts to fall apart. When a national party betrays the ideal on which it was elected by the will of the people, it is inevitable that other national parties will arise. And they will be more dedicated to that ideal. And they will keep the key national party on its toes. Because our democracy has been a false democracy, isn't it? You could only vote for a unionist party. You could only vote for a party that wanted this country governed by someone else. And then you're told, of course, they have this schizophrenia, the unionists. Your history is bunkum, forget it. That's the first thing Cologne, after wiping out our language, banning it, and they did. You were not allowed to talk Gaelic or Old Scots. The next thing, or wear the kilt, the tartan as well, yeah. You're well informed. I get people writing to me, I was talking to you earlier about this, I get people writing and say, Highland clearances, I never knew anything about this, Gareth. Why did I not get this at school? You know, I'm actually surprised, because I thought everybody knew about what happened to their Highlands. So you get the British Empire, you get the Unionists telling us our history is bunkum, and then they switch. You're great engineers, you're terrific ambassadors, you're wonderful administrators at Canada, and you know, they go through all the Commonwealth countries. As Churchill said, wherever you go, you'll find a Scotsman in charge, and thank God he's there. But we're not good enough to run our own country. How do they equate that? How do they square that one?
Because we're genetically not able to do
Well,
it.
that's right. We're inferior. That's the colonialism in us. We're no as good as the other guy. Anyway, apropos of nothing really, one of the things I learned when I went to Los Angeles was how to give someone a fulsome compliment, like my wife. Do you like my dress for the dance tonight? Aye, well, your shoes are fine, hen, you know. I was up making a documentary in Orkney on the Orkney Chapel that the Italian prisoners of war built, following in my father's footsteps. And I managed to find one of the guards who was now a retired dentist. Smoked a pipe. I said, what we'll do is we'll have you, where they built the barriers, you know, for Churchill to stop the U-boats getting through, we'll have you walking along the side of one of those, and you just start talking to the camera about what life was like as a security guard with all these hot-blooded Italian Mediterranean types. If you go to Orkney now, there's a lot of sallow-skinned people around here, but they don't say much about their heritage. I'm quite proud of being Italian, you know, it's quite handy. Although, I mean, the greatest moment for me was being to Sicily and have an American taken out a phrase book. Oh, excuse me, pardon, can you direct me to, I'm a tourist here myself, pal. That was a great moment. But then if you see a photograph of me in my 30s, I look like a mafia hitman or a pimp. It's one or the other. You just have to look at it. But anyway, it was enough. It was enough to sway my wife. Thank goodness. So I'm going off on tangents here. But I got him to walk in front of the camera, and he started. Well, it was difficult. It was freezing cold winters, you know, and we got our instructions, you know, from the military, and you know, these Italians and that, they weren't easy to look after. And we were away from our wife and all that. You know, these big rocks, we had to get the rocks out, we had to move them down at the foreshore, get them on, and I said, oh, cut. So I walked up and said, forgive me for it. I said, but you're talking as if you built the barriers, you and other guards. I said, it was the Italians, wasn't it, that did that? And he puffed at his pipe, looked up at the sky, and out came a typical Scottish compliment. I'll give them halfway. See, so moments like that. And then, as I said earlier to you, when you go to Los Angeles, Mr. Wardell, your voice is so, I'm through. Just talk to me, you know. After years of being told you're a Keeley. I actually had a German, and when I was up in San Francisco, he called me the Glasgow thug. You are a Glasgow thug! And I'm actually from Edinburgh. Carry on, mein Herr. Oh, he was Hitler Army, a wealthy businessman that the Americans love. You know, grabbed all the German scientists and rocket scientists. You're not going to prison. You're not in prison. We've got this campaign going. Churchill. When you discover these things, they're very difficult to believe, so you look for, check this can't be true. After Yalta, 1946, Churchill hatched this lunatic idea of grabbing all the German armaments factories and turning out tanks, bombs, rifles, machine guns to invade Russia. And those commies and the Bolsheviks, it was only Roosevelt said that, I don't think that's a good idea. You know, they've lost millions of guys, you know, in the war. Just leave them alone. But we should do that, you know. He didn't like Stalin, and Stalin didn't like him. But I mean, this is a guy who's a hero. So even heroes can have daft ideas. But we're now at a stage in our existence that is extraordinarily precarious. We have an American policy that's been around since those days, 1946, to wipe out Russia. The Russians know this. And Gorbachev, I regard him as the greatest statesman of last century. Gorbachev thought, I have to defuse this. And he said, tell you what, if you move your rockets away from our border, take them right back, I will take down the Berlin Wall, I will wipe out the USSR, and I'll create a federalist state. The Russian federal state. He said, you can have East Germany back, so long as you don't move NATO into it. And the answer was terrific, great. And for a while, the Americans went with that. But he was naive, Gorbachev, because almost as soon as the wall was down, NATO moved in. And Gorbachev was deposed because he looked weak. You know, he'd been easily fooled. And we're paying the price. You know, we have to come to some common ground with the Russians. I know what's happening now is the gravest error that Putin has made, because he's been that word demonized ever since he was elected to be the premier in Russia. Oh well, you know, it's from their secret police and everything. You know, it was a constant campaign, so that when he does something like this, we told you so, we warned you. That's the man, you know. So we've got to get rid of him. We've got to have put our guys in. You know, we have to have a Christian Russia. And all this is happening when the goddamn planet is about to implode, where the ice caps are melting so fast that the sea is getting warmer, so warm that life in it is not going to survive. And when that happens, our chances of survival as the human species are minimal. There's going to be massive famines, hundreds of thousands of refugees, you know, whole nations shifting from their country because it's impossible to live in it because of the heat. You've seen it. You saw it last year, Australia on fire, for example. They've just had rains and floods that they've never experienced before. So we've got this cataclysmic coincidence of the two worst things that could happen in the span of human existence. That the two of the great nations of the world could resort to the nuclear war. Now, nobody survives a nuclear war. Nobody. If you didn't get incinerated, you'll be dead within a month as your skin starts to peel off. And we've got the planet that we've spoiled and we've polluted. And you can hear our politicians, Boris today, we need the oil, we need the gas. We're not going to do that, Car makers, I had a franchise column for a long time. My father was an Alfa Romeo mechanic before he became a prisoner, before Churchill repatriated him back to Sicily. Those untrustworthy eye ties. So the confluence of these two disasters are why I am not sure if my children's children have got a future. And I truly believe that if Scotland is independent, we can together try and fix things. I think it's too late probably to push what's happening in the planet back, but I think we can soften it a bit, and we can work out how we're going to. Scotland's going to get it as well. I hear people say, "Oh, it's great. It's so hot now." Yeah, terrific. Yeah, yeah. We'll get some of our reservoirs will start drying up. So I'm trying not to despair, but if we are a colonized country, we are subjected to the rule of the other nation, and they will decide what is best in their interest. So we have to have a voice of our own. We have to have a vote. We have to have a say. We have to do things that suit Scotland. So for those two reasons, when we missed it in 2014, we may really live to regret it. And it would be nice if we do live to regret it. But some of us won't. So quick, ask me another question before everybody goes home to commit suicide. I can't switch the gas on, it's too expensive, Gareth.
Gareth, what do you think, what can we possibly do? I still meet people and I speak to them about independence and they still go, oh no, we couldn't afford that, we need the English to prop us up, which just makes me want to die of embarrassment that they even say that. But it's just that people just are still so and ill-informed by the media. They seem to believe everything that they hear on the BBC and ITV News and what's in newspapers. How
That's
can
right.
we get the other media, such as yourself, out to a bigger proportion of the population?
Invaders don't, colonials don't invade a country to make us all rich. They invade a country to plunder it. That's their whole intention. And of course, we see if you look at the Roman Empire, in order to expand and be powerful and have a bigger army, it had to take over another country. And when you do that, you've got to leave your army there to keep supervision, to keep peace, keep the natives docile. But you've got to feed them. And some of the people in that country will come to an accommodation with you because, they'll get something out of it. Just as in Scotland, some middle class are very happy indeed to be colonised, because that's where they see their promotion, their lifestyle, their status. They relate to that. They want to be at the colonials' table because because they feel they are the chosen one. So when it comes to what can we do, we need them. We need English money. Well, they're not giving us money; they're taking our money.
No, I know, but that's.
We get about a third of what we give them. That's what they tell us. That's what we can see. That's what the Treasury are liars. The Treasury is just as crooked as the goddamn Cabinet Office in Westminster. They hide the figures. So my independence isn't about left or right, or being a born-again vegetarian or a Buddhist. It's about freeing your mind. It's about knowing you have power. It's about knowing you have a vote, you have a right, and you will be heard. After that, once you get that independence, it's up to the people to decide which way they want to go. Left, right, centre, half capitalism, half socialism, I don't know. I won't be around when that happens. But it's important to free your mind. Like you're saying, and I've agreed, you've met people who didn't know about the Highland clearances. Yeah, some Scots did that. Well, yeah. Just as some Jews sent other Jews to gas chambers. Because if they didn't, they were going into the gas chamber. That was the order given to them. So it's really important to take that weight and understand it's difficult when you've been told for years that to be British, I don't know what to be British is. I've never felt British. I felt Scots. Wherever I go, Scots. As I say, and yeah, I get annoyed when I go down south and I can't, the parking meter will not take a Scottish note. I don't need to go in a shop and have the note refused or have some shopkeeper say, is this Toy Town money? No, it's not Toy Town money. I don't need that. Colonialism is racism. They're telling you you're not good enough. You're not one of us. But you could be if you acquire our ways. So yeah, they're going to tell us we're poor. Well, if we're poor, what the hell are you doing here? What are you doing here? What are you getting from us if we're poor? Let us be poor in our own way. I don't know if that's an answer. Sometimes I have to place my hand on somebody's shoulder when they say that, just to keep their attention and let them know. It's like feel that blue bit of electricity go through. Listen to what. Look into my eyes. Listen to what I've got to tell you.
I think if we had our own news TV channel that was completely independent, built, made
Oh yeah.
in Scotland, sold for Scotland, do you think that might help to get the
Yeah,
message across?
Yeah, I'm surprised that the SNP didn't do that.
Yeah,
See the money it's lost on the ferries?
yeah.
Yeah. That we could have copied Channel 4. It doesn't have studios. It's a commissioning unit. It just has commissioning editors. You go in there with your ideas, you get a meeting, go in with ideas, you pitch it. They think it's good or bad. If it's good, they give you some money, a deadline, they want to see the books, they allot one of their accountants to it. So we could have had that. And that would have generated a lot of jobs. A lot of people's costs.
I don't think broadcasting is devolved. That's what they would say.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they would say.
Well, we
Sorry.
just do it. Just do it.
Then, well, yeah, then I know what's
No, well,
simple as that.
don't worry about it.
We've got no control over the armed forces and no control over the police, so what do they do? This is the whole dilemma of unionism.
Well,
You know, if you do things that they don't want you to do, that's it, and you're gone. I mean, Churchill did that. He put the troops in George Square, was it 19 something like that?
They kept the tank out. People think there's a photograph of a tank, but that was on display. He kept the tanks at the back. Yeah, but he put instigators in the crowd. I mean, that's classic.
Exactly what's happening.
You know, you put your special branch into the women's protest group. You can go as far as marrying one of them. But I'm married. No, it's okay. Go ahead, as long as you give us monthly reports. I mean, how sleazy? It's all the evidence is there, but people keep. Oh well, you know, it's just a one-off thing, isn't it?
But on a positive note, on the polls are showing the young people under 30s is, support for independence is up in the 70s. That is a positive thing.
Yep.
Then you look to the older generation over, I can't remember the category, but it's the 60s, 70s.
That's right.
I go on the marches or on the one banner, and it's mainly older people in the 50s or 60s that are on these marches,
Yeah.
and it's I don't see very young, many young people.
Oh, but you see young ones running the Glasgow and Edinburgh. The rest of the ones running the rest of Scotland.
Yeah.
I'm for US bikers, I attend every one of them. I missed one.
Yeah.
Run rig was playing it, so
Yeah.
never no chance.
Yeah.
Alright, I've missed one. I've been to the other one.
But
Any
also-
other place you get, Glasgow and Edinburgh, that's where you get youngsters at it. You go abroad the weekend there, there's a few youngsters, but it's basically older people. Right? I'm on Nest last year. Older people. I'm on Nest. That is supposed to be a unionist place. That was one cracking march.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I see is a hell of a lot older people will make the time. The youngsters won't make the time for it.
The,
You're too busy with
the
your
marches need a new focus, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
They need
It needs a more
one
thought.
focus, one
Yeah. And you need to be
too many-
marching not to a rally, but to face your opponents.
Yeah, there's too many groups.
They've lost
Hot-
credibility.
There's nothing more frightening to a politician than a phalange of march coming down the street towards them.
Too many,
They
too many
don't
different-
agree with your
different groups
policies.
is holding marches. It
Gareth-
should be one and one group,
Yeah.
and they decide the marches all together.
I'm sorry, but the absolute fear that has been getting put through the public in the last 2 years. You look at the marches before COVID,
Yeah.
you look at them now, the fear, don't go and see your granny, you could kill her. Children what they've done to children, the psychological damage of what's been done to children is shocking. And the scientific figures are not there. How many times it says, because you'll catch it, you'll spread it, or you vaccinate.
Yeah.
Vaccination proved to be wrong and all. You could still catch it, you could still spread
Oh
it.
yeah.
But our children actually face the biggest harassment of all of that. With the school they missed. My son is actually in 4th year just now, having missed pretty much the most 2 vital years of his schooling. So it's fear. I'm afraid to say no, it's not just what happened there. It's fear.
Jan, there's a marches and send a signal, and the marches were getting bigger, and they were getting bigger, and they got to the stage where they put 100,000 on the streets of Glasgow. Until the stage, COVID came in, and that has absolutely killed it, and it will take a long time to get the momentum back that we had before.
The reason I stopped attending marches, and you know that most individuals, because we sell a lot of different stuff, we were asked to quote specifically, was there were so many. We felt we
Yeah,
really
they
should
need
be
to
on
be
the streets,
concentrated
not
and-
doors, because it was only in the press
Doors.
we saw that, or stopping the traffic where people were getting fed up with us.
Well,
But yes, by all means, have 1 or 2 a year, but not 10. 1 a month is too much.
But
Sorry, that's fine.
Linda, there was that level where it was building up momentum and it was putting pressure on. And we're now I think we're at a stage where, and a lot of you will agree, we're not at the position where people think that putting pressure on, we're at that stage, we're not at that stage now. There needs to be a build-up again to we're at that stage, and when you've got that wall of people, they can't turn around and deny that there's when they say that there's no appetite for independence. And you had 100,000 people marching through Glasgow, it's the two things don't.
100,000 people is nothing, but
Yeah,
for something as important as independence, we should have 500,000. One
around.
rally a year.
Yeah.
500,000 people down the motorways, grind the country to a standstill. Marches and rallies do nothing for our cause. It costs a lot of people a lot of money, their time, their effort,
Yep.
their kids, everyone's achieved nothing. I've been doing it for nearly 10 years. And this is the worst it's at just
We need
now.
a sincere leader, and we had one before, and now we
I have to admit, I've only been on one march. That was a big Glasgow one of the biggest. And I was crippled by at the end of it. I mean, I didn't know what was happening inside me, you know. I hadn't realised, the way I put it is that I'd become a shiny apple that was rotten inside. And at the end of it, I couldn't move. I had to go and find a pub to flop on a bar stool. And I missed all the speeches. But I did it because I thought it was important to be there. But I noticed that some of the SNP folk and some of the celebrity ones, they popped out of side streets and walked a block and then disappeared again. I did the whole march from start to finish. And funnily enough, the first thing I said to the guy who came round with one of the wee money tins, I said, where does that money go once it goes in there? Here's my badge, you know, here's it.
Aye.
I said, well, I'll not do that if you don't mind. I said, I'll send money somewhere else.
It's getting almost 9:30. It's what 20 past. So I think if anybody's got one more burning question,
I've got a question I would like to ask. Having brought up a family of 4 children in Coatbridge and Airdrie and Chapel Hall, what can the Scottish Government do about sectarianism? You talked about racism, Gareth, earlier on about unionism in London. What can they do about sectarianism and racism in Scotland? Because I've had to watch my children, my parents, my grandchildren all facing the same thing. What is the answer? If you were talking about being accused of being anti-Semitic, if people were allowed to march up and down the streets talking about Jewish people, Muslims.
There's a David, a Michael, a Beverly. I've got everything except a Shlomo, I think, in my family. I mean, it's quite usual after the war when Jewish people fled from Europe. A lot of them came to Scotland for safety. But a lot of them changed the name. Uncle Jaime wouldn't allow me to call him Jaime. In public, I had to call him Harry. He was still frightened. Still wasn't sure about whether it was safe. Sorry, I've sidelined what you were saying.
No, I was asking, what can we do about holding Scotland back with the continuous sectarianism that's probably infiltrated up to cause division and badness in Scotland? How can we progress?
Well, now we come to a dilemma. I'm somebody who believes that even your opponent should be heard. Yeah, I'm unhappy about them marching through streets, but I've noticed that the groups are getting smaller and smaller. And we don't seem to have bombarded them with any propaganda. We don't seem to have found ways of dealing with them. We've found ways of rejecting them. You know, I mean, a lot of the rednecks that stormed the American building were poverty-stricken folk with no hope of anything, goaded on by people who had tons of wealth and wanted to keep it and keep the privileges. So I'm uncertain how you handle it. I know that banning them and keeping them out of debates doesn't help.
But a lot of people were frightened to go from no to yes because of the stories of their grandparents and different things. How do we bring these people forward when they're still experiencing this type of racial abuse? Because it is racism.
It's another, right, I have a saying that no nation ever rose up to demand its abolition. We've established that Scotland will be independent. Doesn't matter how jaundiced you feel about marches, the precedent's been set to the British government that this nation will have to change. Otherwise, they wouldn't be working on useless federalist ideas to try and placate us, as they did with the vow. They wouldn't be doing that if they thought there's no problem here. They're not ruffled by Nicola Sturgeon. She's not ruffling any feathers. But they're certainly ruffled by the mood of the country. And it'll get worse. as the pound in our pocket is buying less, the cost, I mean, I've filled up, I have a tiny car out there that I used to be able to fill for 15 quid. It cost me £40 now. The guy on the other side of the petrol pump, he says, "This is £150 and I'm still not filled." You know, but he heard me going, "This is terrible." You know? So these things conspire on the government to get them worried. And they, you know, the British government is worried that Scotland has rebelled and they can't suppress it. They can't. They can delay it, especially if they get the right person in charge of the key national party. But they can't stop it. It will happen. And it could happen tomorrow. We wouldn't need any of these discussions about are marches any good, you know, who's stealing the money, who isn't, what she said, that, you know, do we need a Malcolm X figure now to lead us? If we just withdrew from the Union, everything that is wrong with this country comes under the United Nations clause of what constitutes a colonised nation. Everything. I mean, there's nothing to worry about legally. So, you know, and you hear people making the really good argument that Liechtenstein hasn't been complaining, you know. We should be ruled by the Germans. They are much better at technology. You know, they make cars, you know, or the French. We love the French. The food is, their cuisine is fantastic. Liechtenstein is a little country. Little country is doing very well. Might not like some of the things it's doing to make its money, but you don't hear other countries saying that. And when people say to us, "Oh, we have to keep the D'Hondt system of voting," I say, well, why? Because it makes a fairer balance of views that get into our parliament. Well, I'm all for different views in our parliament. But the D'Hondt system is used in countries that are already independent. There's nobody in them saying, "We want the French to rule us. We are the French party." You know, you think it through. So it was stuck on us because it kept unionists. You know, they knew some SNP would get in, but it would keep the unionists in power. Well, we broke that one, didn't we? We did that. So we're left with this terrible dilemma of, do you vote SNP and hold your nose? Do you vote for the lesser of two evils? The main evil is unionist parties. Do we vote SNP thinking, you know, they've made an absolute mess for the last 2 or 3 years of almost everything, but they are keeping out to, mostly to intents and purposes, a complete and absolute takeover from the British government. We now have a choice. There's ISP and there's the Alba Party.
No, are they?
Well, they are to a point, you see, that our constitution is, it's nearly impossible for a country to lose sovereignty. You can give a little away. You know, you've got oil, I'd like to buy some of your oil. Okay, if you want to buy some of our oil, here's what we want from you. Right? We want freedom for our workers to go to your country and get work there, because we haven't got enough work for our citizens. So you lose a little bit of sovereignty. That's okay, 3%, 4%, 5%. But it's nearly impossible to lose all sovereignty. Scotland is still a sovereign nation. Boris knows that. You'll have been advised.
Michael Stewart goes to that then.
Stewart knows it. Right. Oh, I don't know what to say about that, about these people. There are people that I meet who are not SNP, they're not Alba. They just think maybe it's time we should be looking after ourselves, but have we got the right people up there able to do it? You know, you hear them talking about it. So when it comes to voting, some people may have to hold their finger over their nose, you know. And I know 1 or 2 people who just won't vote for the SNP at all. I'll have that dilemma, or a Green.
Never.
Well, the Green Party are not, even on the basis of being parliamentarians, they're pretty poor fodder. They're a protest party, and we need them. And you know, it's going to get worse. But they haven't been talking about saving the planet. No, really. They've been talking about other things. So they're pretty useless. And I live in more booze, not very far away from J.K. Rowling, or as I call her, J.K. Rowling in it. And it's liberal. It's Alex Cole Scuttle and Lang. And Lang, the councillor, you know, he does what councillors do, and so, you know, you use your councillor if they're working for you, if they get results. If they don't get results, then you come to the inescapable conclusion that they're useless. So what do you do next? You know, a council's not letting you. Right, I'll write to the head of Edinburgh Castle. Well, his name. So, your options start going. So at a local level, we still have a kind of say. We still have influence. The national level is what we want. That's where we're stymied. And it will happen. It really will happen. But we can't slacken. You know, we can't say, oh, well, we lost it last time, so let's wait until, you know, the mood of the country swells again and we feel safe in a big crowd. We have to cause that crowd. And the better you are at it, the more honest that you are at it, the more you will attract people who are better and are honest. You know, they will see that you're saying something that has truth in it. They will see you're saying something that says, we can be better. We can do things better. We can make it better. But we have to have the power to do it. And we're up against this machine, this untrammeled, unregulated, extreme capitalism, who don't give a damn about us. They're going to take us to the end of the planet because they'll have their money. And they'll be dead by then. They don't care. I've got 20, 30 years in my yacht. You know, it's in Monaco. Well, what do I worry about the planets, you know? About the planet, you know, the seals, birds falling out of the sky, fish dying in the sea. No more whales. I don't give a damn. That's not what I see when I'm in my yacht. I see other rich people. I see wealth. I see, you know, I hate the Russians. Can you give me another vodka, please? You know, you get all that kind of thing. Yeah, but that's what we're up against. We're up against a philosophy, an ideology. It's a fake one. It's based on cobbled together economic religions that don't make any sense. Where it's dog eat dog. If you're highly competitive, you know, you will get to the top. Work hard, you'll get there. Work hard, they'll close your mine. Work hard, they'll close your shipyard. Work hard, they'll close the car factory because you don't own it. You work for it, you made the money for those guys, but you don't have any influence in it. So we're facing capitalism that doesn't care about the planet. We've plundered it to hell, and those in power who've now got the money because we allowed our politicians to deregulate banks and move money to islands. But it's legal. You know, why are you criticising Rishi Sunak's wife? What she's done is legal. Well, yeah, but it's morally repugnant, and it's hypocritical, and I don't want that in this country. I want to have the right to make sure that that doesn't happen in our country. So, yeah, we lost, and now we've got to fight twice as hard I'm sure William Wallace lost a battle. What was the last battle in Scotland before the Union?
Or before the Union, Battle of Coat Bridge was the last battle in Scotland.
Pinkie. Have you heard of that one? The Battle of Pinkie.
Right, I think
We won that
it's
one.
that time, unfortunately.
It
Can
was
I-
the 13th, but we won it.
Can I ask you to give Gareth a round of applause?